Hello and welcome to the Books Crypto Club weekly catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday the 7th of August 2022 and today we're going to have a mix of conversations talking about cryptocurrency, the crypto markets, going to be discussing various blockchain platforms and some which aren't actually blockchains but tend to come within the blockchain umbrella term. We're going to be talking about some of the different blockchain communities, some of the crypto communities. We're going to have some conversation around DeFi and what it is compared to TradFi or traditional finance. If you want to learn a little bit more about NFTs and how they could be used to greater effect in the traditional finance market, stick around. If you want some insights into the general crypto market and what's happening with the top cryptocurrencies at the moment, then we have some conversation on that too. We hold these meetings every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. UK time. Everyone is welcome to join, novice or expert alike. Do come and join us. There's a link in the comments below. Meetings are open to novices, experts, people to talk about projects that they're working on, people to ask questions, and for us to learn and share with each other. Hope you enjoy the session. Do click on the subscribe, or even better, come along to a future meeting. So let's see who's going to join us today. Hey, Kieran.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good, thanks. Is this first time been on one of these calls?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No idea how many people are going to join us today. Some weeks we get like 10 or so people, other weeks it's a one-to-one.
Okay.
We don't have a fixed agenda as such. We just end up talking about whatever people want to talk about, really. So I don't know what's your interest. Any particular topics or anything, or things that you're following at the moment?
I mean, I'm generally interested. I mean, I guess for me, I'm probably most interested in the kind of the crossover between TradFi and DeFi. It's probably my focus. I work in finance, so that's where I'm probably most focused. So, okay. But I mean, I'm generally interested in the whole area, to be honest.
Excellent. And with the accent, is that Southern Ireland? Yeah. So there's some great groups there as well. I don't know if you're a member of any of the crypto groups that operate.
No, I live in London, so
sorry, the assumption of the accent and the location being together.
Yeah.
well, even better then if you're in London, because that's
there's lots happening here.
Excellent, that's good. And we've just been joined by Ian as well. Hey, Ian. Ian's trying to find the unmute button now, no doubt. It looks like we've got one or two more coming in as well. Yeah. Kieran, how long have you been interested in the crypto space then?
Years. I don't know. I've been looking at it for ages. I looked at it as part of my job, kind of like from about maybe 14, 15. So I've kind of been involved with it since then.
Along what? And you say you're in like traditional financial services then?
Yeah, I work for an investment management company.
Okay. No. So it's just all numbers, isn't it? It's just what the numbers relate to.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Well, we'll see what we end up talking about today. Ian, hi. Can you say hello? Yes. Ian. Oh, crypto's gone away, but Ian's still there. Never mind. So sometimes get this as people are getting set up and that kind of thing. So Kieran, from your perspective then, where you've joined today, anything in particular that you'd like to talk about or anything you'd like to share in any way?
Not particularly. I was just listening. I'm just interested in generally what you think is happening in the marketplace at the moment, and what you think the interesting news of the week was.
Well, I guess the one for me is the Solana hack.
Yeah,
was quite interesting. I've not had an opportunity to take a look at what that was about or what it went through, but that certainly looked like something that was sending Twitter and Discord channels a light during the week.
Yeah,
I don't know if you followed that at all.
I saw a bit of it. I mean, I think it's like mainly bridges, isn't it? Like, so it's like, I guess, when you're on these between chains and you're on a bridge, you're very exposed. And I guess that's the issue I think that exposes. And but I wasn't that close to it. I just kind of was some of the headlines.
Okay. I've not even had a chance to read up into the background of it. I'm hoping that maybe we'll get someone who'll join the call later on who may have been following it a little bit more interest. It's one of those things, I guess, that unless you're into that particular blockchain or have holdings in Solana or something, there's so much going on. You probably go, doesn't affect me.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, I guess just the challenge with any of this stuff is like there's so much news on a daily basis, and like most of it's completely irrelevant. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and there is so much going on. You have to
Yeah.
kind of put the filter on, don't you, to just look at what's really of interest to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's your area of focus?
So I've been interested in the crypto space since probably about 2015. I became an independent consultant in 2016, looking at blockchains. Blockchains, the area that fascinates me. That and like decentralized ledgers and that. Then started getting into crypto a little bit around about 2017 because you can't escape from it. And then I've just gotten more and more into it. So I'm now an advisor on a couple of NFT projects. I've been an advisor on a few cryptocurrency and ICO projects. And I just love building communities and helping people develop and learn and that. So we've just been joined by Jürgen. Hey, Jürgen.
Hi, Ian.
Hey,
Gary, sorry. I'm just, sorry, this is the first time I'm dialing into this. I'm still trying to get the technology to work also. A little bit strained on my wife.
That's not a problem. Well, leave the camera off is always a good start. That will certainly help you. But welcome to both of you. You're joined by Kieran. It's the first time he's been along.
Hey,
sessions as well. So I'll ask a similar question, Jürgen. Whereabouts are you based?
So I'm based in London.
Okay.
And I'm so from the traditional financial sector. I work in corporate finance, but I've been also an investor in this space for a few years now. Okay.
It sounds a familiar story. Kieran was just saying how he's also in traditional finance market and also London based. So there's some commonality there, definitely. So Jürgen, anything in particular that you're watching at the moment or you're interested in?
That's a good question, Gary. So I have spent a lot of time trying to really understand the DeFi space, which coming from traditional finance, I think, so it was a natural point. And given what we've gone through over the last 6 months, it's also been a lot about going back to basics on some things, because with the proliferation of projects that we had over the last 2 years, it was just so difficult to keep up that sometimes you then lose contact with what actually are the fundamentals and what makes something successful in the long term. And there also, I think, is the intersection to NFTs for me, which is, aside from being an amazing tool for artists and to express art of any kind, I look at it more from the perspective of how does it inscribe digital property rights, and what does that mean for a whole bunch of other use cases beyond art, be it real estate, or you can go through anything really, insurance, etc., etc. So that's been really fascinating to see, and it continues to be amazing to see. And I'm trying to work out where is the intersection of all of this.
Yeah. I think the intersection is a point called, and I think the intersection point is a thing called regulation. I think that's what's actually going to link it together and keep it apart as well in some ways. So if we think about, first of all, what is DeFi, decentralized finance? Ultimately, it's about kind of doing the opposite of what we do now with traditional finances. You think about each of you work for independent financial companies. Each of you probably interact with multiple banks that are all operating on their own behest and that. Whereas with DeFi, it's typically you're all commonly operating on a single platform, which is a blockchain. Although having said that, that's already changing, and people are providing DeFi services on multiple blockchains. So it's that kind of role reversal, that it's the fact that in theory, everyone's going to be operating on a common platform in some way, which makes the interaction that little bit easier. So rather than having to go to HSBC for details and Barclays for details and AXA for your insurance details and so on, it should all be in the same place on the same platform and accessible by smart contracts. That's the kind of the nirvana of the future. The reality at the moment is that an awful lot of decentralized finance isn't particularly decentralized, because it's either running on a blockchain that is not particularly decentralized. It's only got a few nodes, or in the case of like Ripple, it's all controlled by a few organizations or whatever. So I think it's got some way to go on that yet before it actually hits what it's claimed for. In terms of the NFTs, that's where I think it's fascinating. An NFT to me is simply a digital receipt of ownership of something else. So I'm probably one of the few people who owns NFTs and knows that I own the digital receipt to an end asset, not that I own the end asset type thing, because it's a digital file in some way. So where that is going to get really interesting is that kind of reflects in a way things like share certificates. A share certificate is simply a representation of ownership of something. And so I think it won't be long before we'll see an increased growth of NFTs being used as a representation of ownership of traditional financial instruments. And that's where the regulation's really going to kick in then, because the FCA in UK and BaFin in Germany for the German banking and the SEC in the States, they're all going to start getting very interested in there. When that starts bleeding into things like the Metaverse, and you've got NFTs being used for Metaverse virtual property, but also real world physical property. So we sometimes have a guy who joins us, Anthony Abel from TPX Exchange, and they're doing real estate. And they're doing it's physical, genuine real estate, and they're using crypto and so on to interact with it. So I think there's going to be a lot of blurring of lines between traditional finance and decentralized finance. And I think there's going to be a lot of blurring of lines of traditional financial instruments and things like NFTs and crypto assets and that. I don't know, for either of you, what your experience to date, does that feel familiar or like?
I mean, I definitely think I think NFTs have a lot of utility, other than what they're being used for today. I don't know if you saw that the UK Law Commission came out with a big report, actually a recommendation this week. So they're it's like 500 pages, but a lot of that's, there's many things in there, but one of the things that focus on is, I guess it's trying to make UK law apply to a lot of the crypto, which is, I guess, well, that's good, I guess, but there's a lot of focus on NFTs in there. I haven't actually read the whole thing yet, but I think there's a lot in there about just, I guess, the things that Jörgen was mentioning, and I think that the UK is going to try and make a play for that. So, and
I think you're right as well. It's interesting. You're saying like UK Law Commission, so they've done some great stuff already around crypto assets and digital asset ownership, and they did something on smart contracts a while ago, I think, as well. So I'll try and dig out the link of some of the stuff that they've been doing, but that's definitely good. Yeah.
I think that areas like the Metaverse will possibly be quicker to adopt the technologies, because if I look at securities that you mentioned, tokenizing shares, inscribing them in NFTs, there is a massive legacy industry that doesn't want that, because every settlement of a security today is a number of people's bread and butter business. And you're going to take that away when you have settlement within a few minutes. So I think that the resistance will be much bigger. But in the Metaverse, which is new to everyone in many ways, there will be many more opportunities for the technology to proliferate very quickly, in my view. With DeFi, the other thing I would say is what it needs to prove out in order to really become mainstream, other than at the back end, as you mentioned, Gary, of connecting multiple institutions and players through an open system, is it needs to become as capital efficient as the legacy system. So right now, where everything is over collateralized, there will be natural barriers to how big that system can get because you don't have leverage in it inherently. You have to bring in more than you can borrow. And only when you have under collateralized lending and lending against real world assets that are not on chain will you actually be able to build the scale, I think, in DeFi that you have in the centralized system today. So that's going to be really interesting to see how projects come and solve for those issues.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, absolutely. And Kieran was mentioning that the Law Commission, I've just pulled it up now, hopefully it's sharing on the screen, about the reforms and the proposals around digital assets and NFTs. I too, Kieran, have not had a chance to read this yet. As soon as I heard it was several hundred pages earlier on in the week, I thought, yeah, that's bedtime reading at some point. So for anyone who's interested in that kind of thing, definitely check out the UK Law Commission and reforms on digital assets. I was just going to bring in as well, so we've got Lawrence has joined us. Hey, Lawrence.
Hey, Gary. Good, buddy.
Back again. Good to see you again.
Yeah, nice one.
Yeah, but yeah, Jürgen, sorry, you were saying about the whole thing around kind of traditional finance taking up things, and I agree that I think there will be some areas where there'll be resistance, if only because blockchain provides the potential for transparency, and as much as everyone claims that they want everything to be transparent, I've seen enough financial services things to know that's not necessarily the case. So
I think there's some use. I mean, I completely agree with everything that Jürgen and you both said. I think, you know, there's too many people who making too much money from a current system, and there's so many, you know, counterparties in any kind of transaction that's happening. But I guess there are a number of areas where they're just, it's really, there's no liquidity. So I think like things like property and stuff like that, which, you know, they're super illiquid. I do think there's some use cases where like having the visibility of something that's like basically you can't basically have a liquid element to today. I think there's a use case there which might work in the not too distant future. There's already a lot of stuff out there. Like you can get like you know, you can already get mortgages on chain, but I think it's the visibility is what's interesting in those, and liquidity, because we're constantly up against the issue of trying to get liquidity in things which are not liquid, and we try to put them in structures, and ultimately, you know, they're liquid until then there's some kind of event, some, you know, black swan event, and then it's illiquid and it all goes, you know, belly up. But I do think that being able to have like smaller units and having that liquidity, I think that is something for certain asset classes where like the NFTs could be interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. I often hear of projects who are saying, oh, we're going to introduce liquidity to the market by developing a secondary market and the ability to resell type things. And I'm really not convinced by any of that. I think that there's either a market or there isn't a market, and the market is either sufficiently liquid or it isn't. Making it available on a blockchain or a platform, whatever, I'm not always convinced that improves liquidity.
Well, if you can, like, the thing is, right, if you have a big building that's worth a couple $100 million and one group owns it, you know, if something happens and you own that building, there's no liquidity. If you have like lots of people who own that, right? So today we do that today. We create structures, we put things that are basically illiquid in them. A lot of those things are closed end. So like, you know, you can't, you get your money out 10 years later, but there are structures out there which try to put them in things that are either monthly priced or even daily priced, and they work. You know, you can put structured products in around them to support them, but eventually they always come unstuck because there'll be some, you know, event and they do become illiquid, and then you close it down because that's generally what happens. But I guess, you know, having that kind of, I guess, being able to break something that's into smaller chunks, which there's more liquidity then. I'm not saying it like at some point it'll be less liquid as well, but if you want to sell it, at least you can sell it at a fire sale. You can't sell 250 million in the same way, I guess.
I completely agree. I think fractionalization of assets is definitely a way. It's as you say, like if you've got a gold bar and a gold bar is worth $50,000, then there's a finite market for people who can buy $50,000 things. But if you slice it up into slivers that you can sell for $10, your market does grow and liquidity does improve as well. So yeah, it's a good point. The interesting thing on that as well, this is again on things like real estate. And I've seen this on many projects now where that whole idea of fractional ownership was proposed using NFTs to partially buy property or whatever. And that again is where you discover that the crypto world and the physical world clash over regulation. So with property, for example, I think there's a limit of, I'm going to say 20, it might be 30, but I think there's a limit of 20 people who can own a single property. And that's where some people who tried to do NFTs fell foul of that. Whereas what you typically do is you create a special purpose vehicle or something which owns the asset, and then you have fractional ownership in that, so it works. So yeah, that's a good call, Kieran. I think you're right in that respect. That that's certainly one way of introducing liquidity.
Yeah. But I think in addition to that, you also need market makers. So it's all well and good to have more divisible assets. That naturally draws more people, but for the market really to function, you need parties involved who are prepared to quote a price at any time, and that's a market maker.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's no different on a blockchain-driven market than it is in a traditional market. I think that's one of the similarities, and therefore, saying you're going to create liquidity by setting up a secondary market, I think is only the first step. In order for that to work, you need to attract people who are going to make prices and back that secondary market with their capital.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, all these things need infrastructure. I can 100% agree with that. But I guess it's more functional than the market today, I would say. It's like, because today it's, it works until it doesn't work. Obviously market makers would, but I just think you have more options in that situation. And that's what it's about, I guess. But I completely agree. Like, there's all these things require infrastructure. That infrastructure will be at some, like, maybe it's not as inefficient as we are today, because I think it's super inefficient today.
No, I agree with that also, because I think one of the big advantages is that you have almost instant settlement. So you don't have all of the risks, the counterparty risks that result from being exposed to whoever you're buying or selling with for a couple of days. And they, in the meantime, can go and rehypothecate the assets, et cetera, None of that happens. And that's why I think it's fundamentally better technology.
There's a lot of capital that gets released that's like tied up today.
Yeah, it's certainly a good point. And as Lawrence mentioned as well, I think that's some of the institutes will use private blockchains to facilitate some of that as well. So yeah, Lawrence, as opposed to Lauren, it's a good point about institutes probably going for private blockchains, which means that what they're likely to do, I imagine, is to go into consortia, where you'll find that multiple banks, multiple financial service companies will come onto a consensus type thing of operating on a single blockchain. So they've got the benefit of kind of DeFi-like, but under their control. So yeah, that's a big point. I'm guessing, Lawrence, are you out walking again today?
No, I'm in the house.
Ah, sorry, I can see you moving around.
Yeah, just relocating from the kitchen as my partner's cooking some food. Okay. But I mean, I don't know if what I said is what's going to happen, but you were just making that statement about the lack of transparency in the banking system. So I imagine, if they don't want things to be that transparent, I know there are private blockchains. I guess institutions, you know, they'll have their own internal blockchain because they want to use it. I don't know, blockchain it's just like really trendy for everything to become a blockchain, but things don't need to be on blockchains.
Yep.
So, you know, it's just like, it's not always required.
There is a temptation of, they always say, if you teach someone to use a hammer, everything becomes a nail. So it's certainly that. And if you take a look at, in terms of developments as well, you've got things like R3, who developed the Corda protocol. And if you look at how Corda works, and Corda, and R3 will admit it, is not strictly speaking a blockchain, but they describe it as having blockchain-like properties. And one of the features about a Corda implementation is that it's only the parties directly involved in the transactions who get the transparency to see it. So yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah, I just as a case in point, I also agree with this. The institution that I work for, we're testing some forex payments on Hedera, and we operate a Hedera node. I think there are about 20 or 30 of those, and they tend to be large companies, enterprises, and I can see exactly that kind of scenario where they basically, you have a consortium of clearing banks, for example, who use this, but it won't be transparent outside of the permissioned node operators.
Okay. So I was just about to type in something for Lawrence on Hedera, which I thought was what he was asking about. So you've developed a node on using a hash graph then, is that right, Jürgen?
Yeah, so yes, we operate one of those nodes, and we're using it, testing it at the moment for international, so foreign currency payments with an Asian institution. And I think we'll tend to become maybe more diverse as a trial, but it's in pilot stage, very early days. Because
Hedera is really interesting as well, because again, it's strictly speaking not a pure play blockchain. It's a DAG, if I remember correctly. Is it a directed acrylic graph engine? Yeah. Yep. Which for most people doesn't mean anything, but for the end user, it means it's fast, which is the key thing. So it's interesting when you're talking about the parties or the counterparties involved in that. So something in financial services tends to have to be a lot faster than like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum transaction. So yeah, that sounds an interesting one. But again, this thing I'm seeing, there are a number of projects and Hedera-based ones, even Hyperledger for some of the stuff it's doing, and R3 Corda. They're strictly speaking not blockchains, but they still come within the blockchain buzz type thing. So a good point.
Well, can they be distributed ledgers, but not all distributed ledgers are blockchains?
So that they are distributed ledgers, but not all distributed ledgers are blockchains.
Right.
So this is the thing, that distributed ledger is simply a ledger of information that people have got common access to that is distributed. It doesn't need to use the concept of a blockchain, where the concept of a blockchain is, you think about if you've got in the olden days where you had a book ledger of, you know, Gary pays John, Janet pays Carol, this kind of thing. Each of those pages is a block of data, and at the bottom of each page there is a cryptographic hash, like a unique digital signature at the bottom of the page, which makes it's like an autograph for that page to prove authenticity, and it can't be changed. That signature then gets put onto the beginning of the next block, and so with each block, the previous page's block is included on it, which means it's then included in the hash on each page. So you've now got blocks of data chained together. So this is why you've got blocks of data chained together. That's how it's called blockchain. So a blockchain, strictly speaking, operates to that kind of regimen where you've got a block of data, a hash, and then that's carried forward onto the next page and that. So you can have distributed ledgers, which might just say, you know, Gary and John are interacting with each other, and we're not using this hashing and that kind of thing, that's still a distributed ledger, but it's not blockchain. Does that make sense? So I think, was it Kieran who was asking that, or Lawrence?
I was asked. Well, I was saying the statement that you said about not all ledgers are necessarily blockchains, but yeah, that made sense what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all ultimately a blockchain and a distributed ledger. They're just forms of database implementation. They're just different ways of setting stuff up and that. And it all comes down to does it really matter? It's at the end point of, does the user get value from it in some way? So it doesn't actually matter if it's a blockchain or a directed acrylic graph or anything else for that matter. Now, ultimately, I think it's do the businesses and do the end users get benefit from it? And we'll leave it to the marketing people as to whether it's a blockchain or not. So anything else happening that anyone would like to share or ask about or anything? It's interesting with having a few new people on today.
Gary, what are you seeing as sort of the really key things that are happening at the moment as we go through all of this turmoil? Really interesting.
The one thing I'm noticing that most people appear to be missing is the adoption and usage of crypto for payments. So I'm seeing a significant growth. There's increase in the number of transactions, there's increase in the number of payments. You take a look at all the reports that are coming out about payment service providers in the traditional world. So these are the companies who process your credit card or your debit card or whatever. They're all now beginning to explore adopting crypto or blockchain in some way. So I think when you take a look at the marketplace in terms of the number of companies beginning to adopt crypto in some way and the number of people beginning to use it, I think it's probably the best it's ever been. And I think that what people are missing is that they just look at prices. And so they see Bitcoin price go down, they see the crypto market price go down, and they're all, oh, no, it's a crypto winter, it's all going badly or whatever. But they're not actually noticing that the crypto adoption is increasing. The price to me is almost irrelevant. It's usage which is important, because once you get widespread usage and adoption with appropriate regulation, and I always phrase it carefully as appropriate regulation, I think the crypto market is going to increase tenfold, possibly even 100-fold in terms of adoption. And then we'll see interesting stuff going on. I don't know if anyone would disagree with that or have their own thoughts.
No,
Laurent,
just perhaps a follow-on question. What do you think people are using the ecosystems for, and which ecosystems do people prefer for what particular reasons?
So I believe there are multiple communities of ecosystems. So the gaming community are very much using things like the Axie Infinity platform. The DeFi community probably using things like Aave and some of the interoperability layers in that I'm not familiar with. The pure play crypto whales, so these are the owners of big crypto assets, are typically operating on the top 5 blockchains. So mainly Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, ADA, maybe a couple of others. So I think for the pure play crypto space, those who are putting money into it or trying to make money out of it or trading, I think they're mainly using the big blockchain platforms still. Then you've got a whole community of amateurs or novices, is an unfair way of describing it, because they're actually very good at what they do, who tend to go for the edge coins. So the new releases, this kind of thing, and they're looking for them to go up 10-fold, 100-fold. I think that's a different community. Then you've got the NFT community. And so these are the ones who are using it for things like digital art on OpenSeas or Rarible. These are the people who are into things like Bay Area Yacht Club or Bored Ape Yacht Club. And and CryptoPunks, that kind of thing. They're operating on different blockchains again. So I think a lot of the NFT community is still moving from Ethereum onto, I would say, Cardano as a kind of area, but I'm not close enough to be able to cite any references or any thoughts on that, I'm afraid. Does that give a feeling to answering your question?
Yeah, no, thanks. That's really helpful. I mean, I follow a little bit some of these communities just out of interest to see, which community is really active and where's their traction. Cardano has been, pronounced dead now many times, but that is a community where there's actually an incredible amount of stuff happening.
Yep.
And I think it's one where there could surprise in terms of the adoption that it gets over the next couple of years, really. Even though a lot of people say the technology is inferior, but the community seems to be incredibly active.
Yeah, I think. Go on, Lawrence.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say I agree with what the gentleman was just saying, because I think I like Cardano. I like the idea of it. I like the slow and steady academic approach and get it right. I did own some Cardano, but in terms of price action, I didn't realize for several months it was going down until it was a bit too late. So I don't have any Cardano now, but I think in general, because a lot of people in the space for speculation, they're here for the trading, and they kind of look at it like, oh, it's only been 50 cents for most of the year or whatever, and they're like, oh, nothing's happening. But the NFT stuff on Cardano, I've heard, is very strong, and I've sat in some Twitter spaces for some projects on Cardano, and I think the future of Cardano could be quite good, but because a lot of people are just, I don't know, their points of views is just sort of like, well, NFTs on Ethereum and quick transactions to Solana, and they think Cardano is a bit of a joke, but the community is strong, those who really behind it.
Yeah, and I think community is one of the most important things in this space as well. You take a look at the Ethereum community, which is the thing that's really a powerhouse. The Cardano one, I think Charles Hoskinson's done a brilliant job at building that as well. And probably Jürgen, the other thing that I forgot to mention in terms of community is the non-crypto blockchain community, which is significant as well. People always default to thinking about cryptocurrencies and crypto assets and that, but you take a look at the Hyperledger community, which is all open source within the Linux Foundation. So there's a lot of companies who are interested in that space, and a big community, a lot of IBM developers working in that area as well, I think, these days. Then you've got, I mentioned R3, the Corda protocol, which means a lot of banks are developing stuff either with Corda or with RippleNet, or a proprietary solution. So that's another area I forgot to mention as well. But yeah, community, completely agree, Lawrence. I think that's one of the real things that drives the activity and the enthusiasm and support of projects. I've been joined by, is it Sharia as well, with looks like Dubai in the background. You gonna say hi? So we've got a few.
Yeah,
shy.
hi everyone. Yeah, hi, I'm Sharia. Hi, how's everyone?
Hey, we're good. We've been just chatting about various things. We've been talking about NFTs, the crypto space, what's going on broadly in the crypto communities and the markets and that. I don't know if there's any area that's particularly of interest for you.
I'm interested in almost everything, but currently, like in India, we are seeing a news between WazirX and Binance. There's a war of words on Twitter which is going on. So that's pretty interesting. Everyone is disowning them. So let's see how things go on. Yeah.
What actually caused that to begin? Was that RBI or something taking an interest?
Yeah. So here we have ED department where they just went and like they have freezed the account of WazirX as a company because they did not do KYC of the users properly.
Okay.
So they are thinking that, you know, most of the funds from Chinese have come in and they are used for terrorist activities there. So that's the reason currently.
Okay, because I saw a whole load of denials and claims between Binance and between Warriors, you know, about what they did own, what they didn't own, and what the involvement was. So, is there anything else happening in? I saw something the other day in India, which was something in Parliament where they were talking about crypto, but I don't know how recent that was because they keep saying they're going to announce some regulation around crypto soon, and then don't. Is there any news on that? Do you know?
Yeah, so so government is not saying much, but our central bank, which is Reserve Bank of India, RBI, is totally against it. So let's see how things go on. But government has not taken a proper stance on it because, you know, they also want to tax it, which is very high taxation, which they are putting currently at 30%. But because, you know, they will also make money. But RBI or Reserve Bank of India, that is central bank, is very much against it. So let's see. I think it will be something to see because we have like maximum so many investors, crypto investors. So it's all about wait and watch story.
Yeah, because I've been watching it with interest because I know certainly the Reserve Bank of India has been, as you say, very anti crypto, and then the Supreme Court ruled in favor of its use a few months ago as well. I just pulled up quickly a thing on Binance and WazirX, this whole thing about disagreeing and this kind of thing. So it's well worthwhile for anyone who's not following that story to check out what's going on. And I think basically CZ from Binance is trying to step away from getting any close involvement and saying, well, what they've been doing, is what they're up to, and we're not part of it type thing. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's a good one.
Thank you everyone.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
So I don't know, we've got about 15 minutes left. Almost everybody who's on the call today is new to this, and as I try and say to everybody, these sessions, we hold them just open for everyone to discuss whatever is of interest to them. So if anyone's got any questions, or if they're working on any projects that they'd like to share, then we can use the last 15 minutes to do that. So anyone got anything exciting that they'd like to share to start with, I guess?
I'll share if that's okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I'm building my own community powered by my own creator coin. So I've been part of I'm not very good at explaining it really, but basically I've been on the journey now for shy of 2 years, but I'm trying to create a community that I would have liked to have had when I first got into the space. So I took some courses out, and you have a bit of a cohort, but then the cohorts kind of disappearing and they don't use the Slack or the Telegram groups or stuff anymore. So I'm building a community for crypto curious, and it's powered by utility token.
And how far down the line are you on that, Lawrence?
Well, it's up and running. So I'm part of a wider community of creators. So our coach and mentor, he has developed the SaaS that powers the tech that does our airdrops and our giveaways for the token, and he is our liquidity partner. So the coin's already minted. It's out. It is on an exchange, not a big exchange, but we have our own exchange, and is backing liquidity. So. And I've got people in my Discord and slowly growing. So yeah, it's going. It's
So I've probably asked this before, but do you have a website?
I don't have a website. I do have like very simple link pages, like a link tree, but I don't have a formal website.
Okay. All I was going to offer is if you want to pop that in the chat, and always happy to promote it. This is the thing that I love helping communities develop. I love helping projects develop. And
thanks.
so
Cool.
if there's anything you want us to stick up, and this is not a promotion, it's not advertising, it's not financial advice, blah, 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 blah. It's all about building communities and informing people about projects, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, so something to really stress that the creator coins, they're currencies, so they're not speculative. They're like, you hold the currency, you can use it in our ecosystem. The utility is, I honor it as the creator. If you hold XYZ amount, you get different access to different things. So I'm doing Ask Me Anything sessions and other utility that I'll be growing over time. And it's all for educational purposes. But there is, obviously, you can exchange the token if you want, and if you want to sell at any point, you can sell it at whatever value it is at the time. But it's but these aren't for the purpose of trading. People will trade them, but we have to talk about them as a form of currency. So that's just something to add.
Yeah, and it's something I always get nervous when people claim that they have a utility token, but it's traded on an open exchange.
Yeah, we're not on an open exchange. It's on a swap. You can swap your Solana into the Gary coin. So our coach is named Gary. He has the Gary coin. He was the #1 coin on Rally.io and then migrated to Solana mainnet. So if anyone knows what Rally.io is, they give creators the ability to have their own creator coins. So they get closer proximity to their fans. Their fans can hold the coins, get access to things, merchandise or coaching and all that kind of thing. So his exchange is just a swap that he has, a website, and you buy Gary coin with Solana, and then you swap your Gary coin into my coin or any one of the other 30 creators who all have their own coins, because everyone specializes in different things. Like one guy, his community is all about driving in cars, anything to do with wheels. Another person, he is there it is. That's the Rally, but we don't use it anymore. So don't go to Rally to buy.
No, I'm being biased. I just love the idea of a Gary coin.
Oh yeah, you're Gary as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But the Gary coin itself, if you want to look into it, it is on Coin Market Cap and it is on CoinGecko. So if you want to read up about the Gary coin on Solana, it's on those two platforms.
Okay, it's good. Well, I'll drop that off. But yeah, always curious when I hear something that's named similarly to me. So my ego just inflates that a little bit more.
Yeah, no problem. I do have a Discord I can share if you want it, and I do have links and stuff. But yeah.
Well, if you pop it into the chat, I'll try and capture that, and I can post it afterwards.
Yeah,
but,
no problem.
Always useful things, as you'll know, because you've been on I think a couple of these calls previously.
This is my second one now. Yeah, but I'll what I'll do, I've got you on Telegram. I'll send you a little bit of a blurb and the link as well.
Okay, cool, excellent.
Thank you very much.
Just heading back into internationally again, back to Sharia. I was going to quickly ask, you didn't say what you're actually involved in. Are you working on the crypto things at the moment, or blockchain things, or is this just general interest?
Yeah, so I actually was doing various courses. Like, I actually lived in China for a decade. Then I came back to India. Then I forayed upon blockchain technology, and I realized that it's like what internet was in 1990s. And since then, I learned more about blockchain, and I got involved in projects. I worked in various companies, Web3 companies, and currently also now I'm consulting some projects.
Cool. Whereabouts in India are you based?
I'm based in north part of India called Lucknow. It's a city, Lucknow.
Okay, yeah. It's just, it's interesting. There's whole communities of blockchain and that going on. Obviously, there's a fair few in Mumbai and some in Kolkata. And I think down in, is it Andhra Pradesh, down in the south? There's quite a lot of interest in it.
Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi NCR, that is the main region.
Yeah, although I tend to find Delhi and Hyderabad tend to be traditional IT, whereas the crypto thing tends to be more either some of the Calcutta and some of the Hyderabad. Maybe there is. Okay, well, thanks.
Yeah, actually, crypto is like kind of decentralized currently. Like there is Bangalore also, there is Hyderabad, there is Mumbai, there is Delhi. Like people are based, like all these big companies are based out of these cities majorly. currently.
Yeah.
And Indians have actually moved a lot to Dubai. So let's see.
Hence your picture in the background, if I recognize it correctly.
It's Singapore.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I was saying Dubai. Yeah, I meant Singapore. Yes, you're right. Yeah, and Dubai. Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of stuff going on there, and I saw some announcements recently about how they're trying to really declare themselves to be the crypto capital of the world, which will be very interesting to see how that develops. Cool. Oh, thanks for sharing on that. That's great. Well, if there's nothing else, all I was going to quickly offer. It looks like Jürgen dropped off and is coming back in again. All I was going to quickly offer is, I know somebody was asking about crypto prices prior to this, and I happen to mention how it's curious how just before these meetings, quite often Bitcoin goes up. And so I was just fascinated to see, usually about half an hour to 30 minutes before this session, we see a spike. And I jokingly posted that on one of the crypto Facebook forums and got a load of grief of people saying that's not the way crypto works. So I just thought I'd share this screen for a moment. And at 18:13 today, so that was just over an hour ago, Bitcoin took a leap and went up from 23.1 to 23.3. So that took a leap of about 200 points. Type thing. So I thought I'd just share that as a curiosity, really. It's I don't guarantee that this crypto group has such an effect, but I thought that was quite amusing. Jürgen, you've joined us or rejoined us?
Sorry, I just got disconnected there for a moment, but it's a very, very good chart. I wonder who of us has been talking it down since.
It's one of those things as well that a number of people ask me about what is it that affects crypto prices and what influences this kind of things. And I keep saying it's actually just a few butterflies in the Amazon flapping their wings, and it's actually all random and there's nothing actually in it. So, well, look, folks, if there's nothing else to cover off, I think we actually covered quite a few things there. We'll finish a few minutes early rather than staying on the call. For those who are in India, where it's like 4.5 hours ahead, so you must be just past midnight at the moment. We'll close off for the day. So I'll close off and say thank you for joining us, and thank you for everybody who contributed today. For those who are watching this on YouTube afterwards, because I know a lot of people actually watch this, the recording, rather than actually come on and join. Remember to click subscribe, join, make comments. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you all again sometime. Have a great day.